this hunting history. In the course of conducting the research for this work, I slowly came to realization that the history of hunting can't be isolated from the study of a much wider range of human-animal interactions that now engage in attention of these very diverse disciplines from biology to archaeology and philosophy. Such inquiries can extend from the tightly focused investigation of human impact on particular animal population to fundamental questions about the conception of humanity and animality, that is, about sensitive definitions concerning nature and culture and borders that may or may not separate these realms. To understand the royal hunt, we must take into account myriad ways in which animals, wild and domesticated, are entwined in human cultural history. Animals, after all, are foes and friends, symbols and signs. They were as talismans, as objects, as markets of status, as commodities and presentations, as source of entertainment, clothing, food, medicine, even a source of wisdom and models of human behavior. Full significance in meaning of human hunting, particularly in its political form, only becomes intelligible when properly situated in this larger tapestry of human-animal interactions. To cite but one obvious example, the special powers attributed to special hunters derive in no small measure from the special powers and properties attributed to the animals by the vanquish. Fabulous beasts can only be slain by fabulous humans. This means that we will need to take an interest in attitudes toward animals and nature held by elites and by populace at large. Having delineated my subjects thematically, I must now do the same for its temporal and geographical boundaries, at least in a preliminary fashion. Initially, I thought I could start with the Achaemenids, the first universal empire that work forward in time. I soon discovered, however, that long before Persians, royal hunt was well-established institutions in early Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China. If therefore ventured with considerable trepidation into these specialized fields of study in which I have no previous experience or training in search of antecedents and analogies. At the other end, one might extend the life of Royal Hunt to mid-20th century. In 1930, Time featured Hermann Göring on its cover, and in the accompanying story noted that the number 2 Nazi was Reich was master of hunt. Lived in 100,000-acre game preserve, imported falcon from Iceland, and expected his quiz to play with his pet lion cub Kaiser. In every particular, including the dramatic destructions of his own hunting park at war's end, Reichsmarschall and Reichsjagdmeister was following age-old practice widely shared by political elites of Eurasia. More realistically, perhaps the termination date of royal hunt should be set in the first half of the 19th century, when under the impact of firearms and new international styles, traditional modes of elite hunting fell into comparative disuse, and its last bastion, Middle East and India, although the royal hunt survived in Khazar, Iran, almost at the end of the dynasty. Geographically, there is, I believe, an identifiable core area in which many of common and distinguishing features of royal hunting complex were developed. The notion of core will be elaborated in greater detail in the next chapter, but for now this territory can be defined briefly as Iran, North India, and Turkestan, though as we shall see, many aspects of this complex show up the much farther afield, some reaching the extremities of the Eurasian landmass. My justification for covering such a broad sweep of time and space to beyond the search of context or perspective or desire to understand the growth of forest, not just trees. These are important considerations which I take seriously, but I also have two specific goals in the study that require a history is both wide and deep. First is my interest in explaining why royal hunt became the homogeneous acres of the continent, why certain elements of this complex traveled so far, why courts and cultures with little direct knowledge of one another nonetheless shared similar hunting style. In short, how can we account the appearance of internal standards and styles under pre-modern conditions of communications? My second goal is to understand why this institution lasted for so long, nearly 4 millennia. The search for reasons underlying its extremely longevity leads naturally to a consideration of Broad's notion of la longue durée. Both issues will be addressed at the length in the concluding chapter. Given the subjects of this study, it seems advisable to offer following disclaimer. I am not advancing another grand theory on the decisive role of hunting in human social cultural evolution. Such a disclaimer is necessary because hunting has often been cast as the engine that drove hominid history. In its extreme form of hunting hypothesis asserts that the big game hunting explains the basic of early hominid biological, behavioral, and cultural developments that hunting made us truly human. This theory has been justly criticized on a number of grounds. One major line of attack is that early hominid communities were not just hunters but foragers and scavengers engaged in the extraction of the broad range of the natural resource. Hunting, therefore, was hardly predominant element, source of change, rather it's part of the much larger package of technological and social ecological adjustments. Second, critics have argued that while less than heroic, scavenging and foraging still require group cohesions, cooperations, knowledge of nature, all of which encourage the elaboration of more sophisticated social and communication skills. Thus, reservations concerning the supposed centrality of hunting in the prehistory apply with even greater force to historic period. The Whitney record affirms, I believe that chase was never a dominating factor, never an engine. This record does show, however, that the hunt was fully integrated into the political and cultural life of many peoples of pre-modern Eurasia. Because of this integration, Royal Hunt provides a useful windows on the past, one that allows exploration of the manifold linkage between nature, culture, politics, and at the same time provides a window that exposes something of the extensive historical connections among the peoples of old world. The Royal Hunt lends itself to these studies by virtue of its multiple phases and diverse functions. That is, it is plastically a property which it shares with other types of hunting. As I will try to show, chase was an ingredient in interstate relations, military preparations, domestic administrations, communications, networks, and search for political legitimacy. But the importance of royal hunt hardly ends here. It was also closely tied to an issue of critical importance to all societies, that of access to and preservation of natural resource. equal concerns to environmental history, elite hunting was a medium through which images of nature were fashioned and projected, as well as a medium through which actual bits and pieces of living nature was disseminated, sometimes far beyond their home range. At this time, I can only offer preliminary reconnaissance of the vast and complex topics. Many individual monographs could and should be written about the royal hunt in particular times and place. Unfortunately, investigations placing elite hunting in its appropriate natural and cultural settings are comparatively rare. This account, to some extent, the uneven coverage of this book, I am painfully aware that important areas such as Korea, Japan, Central Europe, and Ottoman Empire deserve more attention than I could give them. Consequently, new and detailed case studies, once availed, will doubtless challenge, modify, and improve my findings and portrayals. But if I am not completely off the mark, then perhaps data and arguments presented here might engender productive revisionism that yields new knowledge, new insights, and new improved hunting histories. Someday, perhaps, it might even be possible to contemplate a truly planetary perspective that identifies long-term developments across the globe, comparing relationship between pursuit of protein and pursuit of power in hunting histories of sub-Saharan Africa, pre-Columbian America, Oceania, and Eurasia. As point of the departure for this particular hunting history, we need to answer some very basic questions about elite hunting. Who hunted? Where did they hunt? How frequently did they hunt? How and what did they hunt? Only then can we tackle the central questions. Why did they hunt?